can't believe that anybody feels the way we do about our girls and all those courts we're traveling to. And all the roads we drive, all the states we see, we've been volleyball, oh, so desperately. I said maybe we're gonna be the ones to cheer them on. We're lost in this volleyball.
Oh, hey there. Thanks for coming. Welcome to Volleyball'd.
Oh, me? Hi. How are you?
How you doing? What's your name?
Allison.
I'm Carlos. So,
We're the Medinas.
yes, we are. And today we're going to have a special guest, Thomas Jenei, who has been a trainer in the area, in the Atlanta area for, or we're now going on half a decade or so. And he is one of the people that specializes in working with young athletes. And so, with full disclosure, he's worked with both of ours. He's a great guy to be around. When we were asked, as part of this podcast, to find a little bit of more information for parents out there, this was one of them that we repeatedly got from a lot of different people who were either working with trainers or just starting the process of working with trainers.
Yeah, you try to find that trusted circle for your kids, that trusted circle of adults that you can turn to. Thomas is 1,000% one of those for our kids. He comes to watch them play at tournaments all the way downtown, an hour away, up in Cartersville. He has come to their performances. He no doubt will be at both of their graduations. Like, he's that guy who will support his athletes no matter what. And I think that's just speaks very highly of his character and why we keep giving him our money.
Well, we just trust him. And I think this is one of the other important factors. When other parents saw him show up to root on, because at the time when we first started with him, he had, I think, 2 girls on our club team. And when they saw his involvement, immediately they're like, can we get his number? Like, absolutely. And so he's built this network all the way from, future Division I athletes, different college athletes, all the way down to younger athletes. For instance, our 11-year-old works with Thomas on a lot of flexibility and strength training. And so he's just a wealth of knowledge that we definitely wanted to make sure that we were able to bring that to the people. And speaking of the people, every time you tell me about the expansion of this podcast, I don't believe you. The amount of you all that are checking this thing out is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, we are up to 22 states listening, which is crazy. And get this, 5 countries. We're in Australia. Like, how did that happen?
I have no idea.
You people have some friends, I guess.
We put it in just some of the socials and just said, all right, have at it. And I think when Allison reached out to me, hey, we have a couple of listeners in Australia now. It's like, okay. The only other time I ever had anything was a previous podcast I did with a radio station, and there was someone that looked like they were getting ready to summit Mount Everest. Like, you could see, okay, they're in this area. And I was like, okay, that's a VPN or that's something weird. And then out of nowhere, like 2 months in, I get a picture from like base camp number 1, like, hey, just checking you guys out again. So you never know. You never know where people start listening from.
Volleyball is a universal language now, I guess.
And hopefully many of you have been volleyballed. Without further ado, let's get to Thomas Jenei. When my oldest daughter asked my wife and I that she wanted to start working out with a trainer 4 years ago, we started making some phone calls and asking around, and one name kept coming up. And he's a certified personal trainer with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. He's a performance enhancement specialist. It's Thomas Jenei. Thomas, first off, welcome to Volleyball'd, man. How are you?
I'm great. I appreciate you guys having me on.
So, like I said, now we've had our oldest daughter and our youngest daughter working with you. And so when we started getting parent feedback saying, hey, why don't y'all see if y'all can get a trainer to kind of give us some perspective on what some of our young athletes have been doing and what they can do. To start with, let's just go there. You have a history. How long have you been working with young athletes? Because I know it's been several years because we've been part of that as well.
Right. Yeah. So I've been the trainer for 5 years now. So I graduated college in May of 2020, and then I pretty much started my training career right around August of 2020. So been in some time, that's for sure.
That's actually hilarious to hear you say that, because I would have assumed you've been doing this for 2 decades, Thomas, with the wealth of knowledge that we have taken from you over the
I
years.
appreciate that. I appreciate
Kind
that.
of amazing. Why kids? Why does training youth athletes appeal to you as a trainer and person?
Well, so I mean, I'm someone who I played sports my whole life. I'm a big sports guy. I love watching it. I love playing, doing all those things, and I just got drawn to it as I got into this world. Initially, once I got out of school, I wasn't really sure exactly where I wanted to go, and then I settled in on a location where youth training was their focus. And from the moment I kind of got started with that, interacting with kids, I kind of got that same feeling I had playing youth sports growing up, and I just fell in love with helping kids, achieve any goal they wanted, whether it was jumping higher, running faster, being stronger, moving better, all those different things. I just love the fire I saw in the kids who are competitive. They're very motivated and determined, and I connected with them real well.
Thomas Jenei is our guest right here on Volleyball'd. You can always follow him on Instagram, TJenei22. That's TJenei22 on Instagram. And let me ask you about this, Thomas, because one of the things you point out is not just being a coach, but being a motivator, being an educator. When you start working with young athletes, I know we've joked around in the past about how some of them will show up to the gym and maybe they didn't have the right kind of meal, or maybe they're not really fired up to get through a workout. How much different is it working with young athletes that sometimes they just don't know any better until they get a chance to get working with you?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That's something I experience often because, like you said, most times it's not that they do it intentionally. It's just that they're unaware. So the way I like to approach it is, I'm never going to berate a kid for doing something they shouldn't, unless, of course, I've been with them for a while and they're just actively choosing not to. But at the same time, I feel one of my roles is just to provide the kids with the knowledge and the understanding of how to maximize everything they do with me, everything they do outside of sessions with me. I feel I want to give them the tools to succeed in every avenue they're doing, whether that be a practice, whether that be a game, a tournament, so on and so forth. So whether that's proper nutrition, proper sleep, how to handle the stresses of daily life, because at the end of the day, outside of athletes, they're also kids. They have so many things going on in their life. They're changing so much. So those things play a major, major role into how they operate and how well they do when they're with me, when they're not with me. So I feel it's just a part of my job and my role to provide them with ways of handling those stresses and just making the best decisions they can make to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, you're essentially a therapist in our house.
Yes. Yes, correct.
I don't know if you know you have that role, but you do.
Both the daughters always go, I feel much better after I've gone to see Thomas. I'm like, well, that's part of the workout.
Right, exactly. Yeah, those two things honestly play really well together. Any sort of physical exercise you do is going to make you feel better. But at the same time, I try and give off the vibe that I'm here for you as someone you can come to with your problems. I want them to feel, first and foremost, I'm like an older brother to them. I'm someone they can trust. I'm someone they can feel that can relate to them, that understands what they're going through, and someone they can bring their outside problems in, have someone they can kind of soundboard off of, and then, okay, now let's go ahead and get after it. Because if not, if they're kind of dealing with those things and they're not quite in the right frame of mind, they're not going to maximize their session with me, and then they're not going to be able to get after it. They're not going to receive any real benefit from it, and there's just no point in doing that. So first and foremost, they got to be able to operate at the best of their ability. So whether that be mentally, physically, all those different things, they all play really well together.
So let's talk about why train in general. I mean, a lot of these volleyball clubs really, shove down your throats, get in the gym, work on your serve, work on your reps. We need, be here as often as possible, 7 days a week if you can. Why is it so important to train outside of your individual sport in terms of what you do, whether it's jump training, strength and conditioning, speed and agility? Why train?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, I mean, a lot of what I've seen from getting deeper and deeper into working with volleyball players is, they are big time on developing their skills, which is super, super important. You got to be able to play the game well before you do anything. But at the same time, if you do anything repetitively over and over and over and over and over again, overuse, injuries, and burnout usually follow. So the biggest way to kind of combat that is to do other types of training. In order to hit the ball harder, you can't just hit the ball all the time. You also have to provide your body with the proper explosiveness that it needs in order to do that skill well. You could be the most technically sound person ever, but if you don't have enough strength and mobility and control of your body to do those movements properly and do them at a high level, you are bound to get injuries. You are bound to have issues. So it's super, super important to prepare your body in order to handle the stresses of the season, of the training session, of practices, all those things. So once you come in and you do a session with me, we're going to work a lot on making sure your body is moving well, making sure your body is feeling well, and making sure your body is at its best capabilities in terms of strength, explosiveness, all those different things.
Thomas Jenei is our guest. You can always follow him on Instagram, tjenei22. That's the letter T, Jenei 22. And let's follow up on that, because part of the benefits that my oldest daughter has had, she's dealt with injuries. And part of what she's been able to do with you is really work on injury prevention and making it a point during the course of the season. If she's not feeling great or she's sore in a certain way, you might put her through a yoga workout or a stretching workout. How valuable is that in season to continue that training?
100%. Yeah. So oftentimes a big issue I see in relation to volleyball is, they kind of don't really have an off season. They go from high school right to club. It kind of just one falls right after the other. So with that said, if you don't ever really take the time to make training an emphasis while you're still in season, you're going to have all types of issues. Exactly like you said, it plays into a huge role in the injury prevention if you can work on your body's ability to handle the stresses of the season. Kind of in relation to your oldest daughter, she recently had an ankle injury. Unfortunate, but those things happen. It's part of the game. The way you kind of get yourself back to the best version of yourself is you got to be aggressive with the recovery process in that, because she needs to get back to jumping. If you get her to the point where like, okay, just stay off of it, ice it, those are all more older traditional methods of recovery. But what that really does is it just makes it feel better in the moment. And the second you go do anything, it's just going to flare right back up, or it's going to stay weak and it's just going to get injured again. Instead, if you take,
and by the way, Thomas, just to interject real quick. So our daughter, and you've done this with her jump training, she's used to doing 48-inch box jumps. She came out of that injury and it was 30, 32, 34. It was a struggle for her. And now you have her back to that point where she's got that confidence back.
100%. Yeah. And there's two things I'll go into about that. But continuing what I was saying, if you work and you treat the recovery of the injury in the same way you treat doing strength training, doing a max effort plyometric with that same type of intensity and focus, the joint itself not only heals faster, but it becomes stronger than where it was before. So in future references and future cases, you hopefully don't have the same level of injury again. That's kind of the goal with that recovery is let's make that joint work better. Let's make that joint better able to handle any potential injury situations so you don't spend as much time off the court. And now going back to what you said about confidence, that is another huge component of injury management, because oftentimes when athletes get injured in any way, shape, or form, whether it be a shoulder, a knee, an ankle, back, what have you, they always have this little voice in their head that's telling them like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. I don't really know if I can do that yet. And something I love preaching to people is you are in control of that little voice. If you get that voice to tell you, instead of holding you back, like, I'm okay, trust your body, trust you're going to be able to do what you want to do and you're going to do it well, you'll be able to get back to where you were better than where you were before so much faster. It plays a huge role.
Oh, I love that. A question for you. Not everyone listening here today has a high school athlete who is in the throes of, high school and extremely competitive club and all of that. Some of our listeners have 9 and 10-year-olds who are just starting the sport for the first time. What can you say to those parents about the importance of training, when they should start training, how it looks different from the older kids, and how to get started?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think it's definitely important. As early as the athlete can truly focus is when you want to start, in my opinion. Now that age is going to vary person to person. It really just depends on their personality, how bought in they are, all of those different things. You don't want someone coming in who doesn't really care about the sport yet, trying to do a hour explosive session. They're going to get nothing out of it. Let them be a kid for the time being. But when they feel they're ready to truly be serious, truly develop their game a little bit, I think around that 9 to 10 age is a good time to start. And what we're really going to focus on early on, and something I recommend, is overemphasizing proper technique, proper form, and proper understanding of how your body moves. If you just do things for the sake of doing them and you don't really have a purpose and intention with it, then they can just go do that on their own. They can just jump on their own. It's not really going to benefit them. You want to teach them how to maximize their ability to do explosive movements intentionally. You want them to learn, okay, what do I do with my arms when I go for an approach jump? Where do I jump from when I'm trying to go up for a block jump? When I'm going to go get that dig, like, what do I do with my torso? How do I get my body in the proper position so I can burst to the best of my abilities? If you lay the groundwork of that foundation really well and you get them to understand how to use their body in that explosive manner, they're going to be able to see, like, oh, wow, I'm actually getting to that ball a lot faster. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting up on that box pretty easily. They really start to understand their bodies well. And once that foundation is set in place, then we can progress it. Okay, we've been doing basic movements for about a month or so. You really starting to get it now. Let's make this a little bit harder. Let's add a different component to it. Instead of just jumping on the box, let's jump over this box. Different things like that. It's just really first and foremost about maximizing your understanding of the technique, the form, and doing the movements properly. That's what matters first and foremost.
Thomas Jenei is our guest. You can always follow him on Instagram, tjenei22 on Instagram. He joins us right here on Volleyball'd. So, Thomas, when you're a first-time parent, you've got an interested athlete, you're walking in to come meet with you or another trainer. I think a lot of the impression we got was, all right, let's put that athlete in your hands and then go from there. I don't think it was probably until maybe a year down the road that we started really saying, hey, she's wanting to get better here, or the athlete starts telling you. Has that been pretty much the general experience that you've had working with young athletes?
100%. Initially, the biggest thing when anytime I work with a new younger athlete is developing a relationship and trust between not only the athlete, but also with the parents. That really, really is important, because you got to get them to believe that you genuinely care about the athlete as a person and not just making them jump higher, right? Because kind of tying back into the mental side of training, if you can get to the point where the athlete feels you care about them and you want them to do the best because you want them to feel good about themselves and you want them to feel like they're accomplishing something, then they're going to really give you their best effort. If they just feel like they're another person coming in to see you, like you're kind of just putting them through a workout, they're really not going to be able to trust you. So first thing that matters, develop the trust, get them to feel like, okay, this person actually wants to know who I am, what makes me tick, what I like, what I don't like, different things like that. Same thing on the side with the parents. I really kind of overemphasize that as I'm getting to know people. I want them to know I have the best interest of their child in mind. I want their child to succeed on the court, off the court, all those different things.
So we have people listening all over the country, Thomas, as they go out into their worlds in their communities and look for a trainer to help their son or daughter with their athletic development. What are the red flags they should be looking for in a trainer that they should avoid? Like maybe you go do a workout and, oh, I don't think that's the way we want to do this. What are the red flags of training youth athletes?
Well, first and foremost, if they don't emphasize form and technique from session one, I think that's a huge red flag. If they're just getting you in there to make you sweat and basically turn it into a HIIT class that you can do at any old gym, that's something I think is a big red flag, because your kid's not going to get any better. They're not going to get any faster. They're not going to get any quicker. A big thing I overemphasize when I'm doing stuff with people is this is not cardio. You are not working on your conditioning. We are trying to get you to jump higher. They're trying to get you to run faster, change directions better. If you feel you are tired after doing something, take a break, get some water, catch your breath. I want you to come into every rep we do with maximum effort and intensity, so that way you get the most out of every rep. If you feel like you're gassed and you're like hands on your knees, you're like hands are above your head, then take a second, catch your breath, think through what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how to do it well. That's the first red flag I look for. Second is, do they really seem interested in what the kid's doing? Like, do they have 100 kids all doing the same thing with that a trainer not really paying attention to them? That's another thing I feel like you should avoid. You should really look for someone who's going to kind of have you in a smaller group, one-on-one, where they can really connect with you. They can really see what you specifically need to work on as an athlete and help you understand the why behind the training, not just the what. You want to know the why. You want to know how to do it the best of your abilities, and you want to truly understand why you're doing what you're doing.
It's like a chiropractor, right? If you go to a chiropractor and they're giving this exact same adjustment to every single patient that comes in the door,
exactly,
it's not going to help you because your
None
spine is different than the person next to you, right? That individual attention.
Couldn't agree more.
A lot of people, I think there's a dividing line out there about heavy lifting, heavy weights for young athletes. At what age would you recommend a heavier lift? Obviously with the proper technique and form, coached in and ingrained within there. But at what age do you think heavy lifting actually starts to pay off for the athlete?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a topic that is starting to change perspective in the training world, because for the longest time, the verbiage was it will stunt your growth. Now, if your child is going in as a 10-year-old and doing a 1 rep max on a barbell squat, yes, that will definitely have a negative impact on your child. Now, if your child is going in and they're doing a lunge with some dumbbells with really good form, and that is considered a heavy lift to them, then they can start that at any age that me as the trainer, you as the parent feel they're mentally able to handle that load. That's totally fine. There's so many, the word heavy load is so different depending on the person, depending on the athlete, depending on their experience level. You can have someone who's 11 years old that they're able to lift a little bit more than someone who's 14, because the 14-year-old's never touched a weight before in their life. So in my opinion, you should always make whatever they're doing in terms of the weight room challenging for them. What does that look like for them depends a lot on their experience, depends a lot on their mobility, depends a lot on their mental focus. But I feel you should first and foremost, again, going back to the topic about plyometrics and speed and agility, teach them how to do the movements. If this is your first time in a weight room, it doesn't matter how old you are. I'm going to teach you how to properly squat, how to properly do a hinge, how to properly do a push-up, how to properly activate the muscles, get into the movement patterns that I want you to get into without having improper movements, compensations. A lot of times you see people specific, I'll talk about a hinge movement or an RDL, also called that. That is probably one of the hardest things to teach kids how to do, because a lot of them do not move well through their hips and they have no clue what I'm talking about when I try and tell them how to do it. So I spend a lot of time.
For those of us out of shape parents, could you explain what that movement is? Sorry.
All good. But it's if you look at a lot of athletes, when they try and get in any sort of defensive position, a lot of them have a lot of rounding and curving in their backs. That's not good. That comes from improper movement of their hips. What you want to see when they're in any sort of defensive position, no matter what sport they play, is a nice flat back and a good bend through their hips in a pretty good athletic position. That is built and developed through teaching them how to do RDL or hinge. Now, I spend a lot of time working with them on that because, again, going back to the mobility side of things, a lot of them physically just can't do it because they sit a lot in school, sit a lot doing all these other things, so their hips don't really work that well. So you got to teach them the proper movement patterns. You got to teach them how to use and engage the proper muscles. So kind of going back to what you were initially asking me, I feel heavy lifting is very objective. And again, you don't want them to ever do a weight that they can't control fully and completely through the range of motion I want them to go through.
Thomas Jenei is our guest on Volleyball. Thomas, I know we could go at this for quite a while, but let's finish off on this topic over here on nutrition, because to me, this is the one component that when parents are busy, it's just hard to plan what kind of fuel that your young athlete needs, especially when they're going to come to see you, when they're going into a tournament weekend, when they're in the middle of match play and it's 3 matches over the course of a day. It's really easy to go run over to the pizza stand at wherever you're at. How important is that? And what are you having to teach young athletes about that fuel that's going in the body and what they get out of it?
Right, 100%. That is a huge, huge piece. A comparison I always like to make when I'm talking to parents or athletes about nutrition is if you are not properly fueling your body for a session, for a practice, for a tournament, you might as well do it with an anchor tied around you because it significantly limits your ability to play at your best. At the end of the day, what you eat and how much of it you eat and when you eat plays a huge role into how your body functions, how the energy level you have, and how well you're able to recover after doing any of those couple things. Now, something I would recommend is, even though it's going to take a little bit of extra time, the best thing you could do is make food at home and bring it with you. Now, that may be a hassle for some people, that may be more challenging for some people, but in these tournaments, there's just not any good options. I mean, some things are better than others, sure. But at the end of the day, no matter what you get, no matter what you buy, it's just not going to be something you want. You should look for, the best kind of rule to follow is about 2 hours to an hour and a half before any sort of match or practice or training session, you should eat a solid quality meal, something that leans heavily on protein, that has pretty easily digestible carbs, nothing that's going to be too crazy or weigh you down, and some sort of vegetable or fruit. You want to also make sure you get really hydrated around that time too. As you get closer to match or practice, if you haven't eaten anything, you don't want to go for that heavy meal. If you're under an hour before any of those things, I would recommend something that is going to be easily digestible. Now, this is, again, something like a fruit or something like a quick snack, a healthier protein bar. And there are very different levels of that. Protein shake is another good option. Something your body can burn through quickly that also will fuel you properly. You don't want to eat too heavy when you're close to the time of doing a training, a practice, or a match, because you're going to feel like you can't even move. Your stomach, you're probably going to be in the bathroom the whole time. Not going to go well. And on the topic of tournaments, because a lot of volleyball tournaments have times between games, that's a time where you want to have your healthy snacks. Your nuts, that's a great option. Having, again, some sort of protein bar, great option. Different things like that. Again, the easily digestible foods, your fruits, those are going to fuel you to be at the best of your abilities. You want to limit the processed foods. You want to limit the candies. You want to limit the unhealthy sweet treats that kids typically want to go to. Those type of things, again, are not going to set you up to be at the best of your abilities. You always want to overemphasize fueling your body to perform and function at the best of its abilities without feeling like you're weighed down, without feeling like you're heavy, and without having a crash. If you hit something that's going to be really high in processed sugars, you're probably going to get super jittery for a little bit and then crash when you need to perform. So if you set yourself up something that's going to be a little bit more sustainable, a little bit better for you, your body's going to be able to perform at the level you need it to perform to.
I remember in the early days, my daughter asking if she could have a smoothie at the convention center in between matches because it was a healthy choice. And I actually took it upon myself one time to ask the vendor if I could see the carton of sugar juice that they were making said smoothie out of. And it was 49 grams of sugar per serving.
Yeah, you're going to be
probably 3 or 4 servings in that cup.
Oh yeah, not good. Not at all what you want.
Right.
Not to mention the prices of the things you buy at these places. I mean, they know you can't leave, so it is unreal. That's another thing. It's actually probably a lot better if you just make that decision to bring food with you. It works a lot better for you, puts your athlete in the best position, and save you a little bit of some money too.
Like I said, when we started asking around for our young athletes, who should they work with, we kept on hearing Thomas Jenei. You can always follow him on Instagram, Jenei. That's TJENEI 22 over there on Instagram. Thomas, we're going to let you have the last word on this. What would you like to tell those parents out there, just as a final thought of, why work out, why nutrition, why everything for them? Because obviously they're spending a lot of money when it comes to these sports.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. There's so many different things that you feel overwhelmed at times when you're trying to make these decisions. But at the end of the day, the goal and the role as a parent is you want to set your kid up to perform and be at the highest level in the moments they need to be at the highest level. And if you find that person who's going to educate your kids on the how, on the why, on the when, they're going to really get themselves ahead of everyone else because those items play huge roles into what you do on the court. It is really all about how you separate yourself and the little things you focus on that set you up to be at the best of your abilities and make that play when you need to make that play versus someone who didn't quite prepare in the way they needed to, didn't get enough sleep, didn't eat the food they needed to, didn't hit the strength training they needed to. Their bodies are feeling worn down and sore because they're not stretching like they need to. And they don't make that play. Their body runs out of gas. Those things, those little things separate you. They get you to where you need to be and they put you above and beyond everyone else.
Well, Thomas, I don't think we can thank you enough. Allison and I, there's a reason why we all refer to you as the GOAT.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it greatly.
All right, this is Thomas Jenei. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
All right, so hopefully that gives you plenty of information to work with. You know, we tried to cover, and Thomas talked about it. Thomas could go on for hours if you let him. And there's a lot of other topics that we could probably bring him back on. But we just wanted to start off with that basis of how he got involved, how he looks at young athletes, but then how he tries to develop athletes of all different ages and most importantly, experience levels in the gym.
I think the importance of the whole athlete maybe was implied throughout our conversation today, but I just want to point it out specifically. There's the athlete on the court. There's the athlete that wants to train. There's the athlete that prepares their body. There's the athlete that recovers. And our role as parents is to help facilitate as much of that as possible. And I think maybe the biggest of all of that is the mental side of volleyball. And if you can find a person or people who you trust to help your child get there, then go for it. We've done that with Thomas and others and encourage you to find the same.
And I would speak to the confidence level. There are going to be times where it doesn't work out on the floor with either one of our daughters, but most notably our oldest because she's done this longer. She's worked with other trainers than Thomas for 4 going on 5 years. But she never leaves the court thinking, I didn't do enough before I got here to prepare. And I think that does give her a level of confidence that when things get difficult, she's like, I know how to push through this. I train like this on a regular basis.
Well, and the cool thing, too, is she's now thinking throughout the adult years of her life, like, I wonder what other kind of sports I'd be good at that I might try later when I have more time.
I try and talk her into golf, but she has zero interest in
she's
going out with
talked about, like, professional weightlifting. She's talked about becoming a triple jumper. She's talked about a lot of things. Right now, she's 100% focused on volleyball, but just having someone who talks about sports and introduces new things makes her feel like the sky's the limit, and I think that's really cool. And encourage it as much as possible.
All right, so this is the part where we say, now that we have a YouTube channel, subscribe. We got approved there. We have our Instagram page. You can find us at volleyball'd_pod. And so that's the same one with X as well. So you can find us at both. We'll be putting out all the podcasts there as well. And so if you'll if you find a little bit of time on Apple iTunes, just a little review. Tell everybody how cool Allison sounds. Just something like that'll improve everything. Until then, why don't you take us out?
Is this the part where we have to start saying like, share, and subscribe at the end of our conversation?
Our kids do it.
We're like right at the borderline of Gen X and millennial, and I've always claimed Gen X, but I'm going to say this very millennial statement now, and I hope you all hear me, and that it's very cringy for me to even say it. Yes, I said cringy. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and share, and do all the millennial things.
Huh?
Today is gonna be the day that we run out of cash. Watching every circle kill, it's a total smash. By now you should have somehow realized what we've lost. Our free time's gone, it's all for volleyball at any cost. I tend to believe that anybody feels the way we do down the street that we're broke again. Entrance fees for tournaments our girls already in. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but we're at the bar, drinking through the overwhelm. No life beyond this far. Don't believe that anybody feels the way we do about the nets and all the chaos we're stuck into. And all the roads we drive, all the states you see, we've been volleyballed, oh, so desperately. I said maybe we're gonna be the ones to cheer them on. We're lost in this volleyball, and all the lights that lead us there are blinding. The hotel nights, the drinks, they keep us finding a way to cope with all this endless grind. Oh, we're trapped, no life outside. And all the roads we drive, all the states we see, we've been volleyballed, oh, so desperately. I said maybe we're gonna be the ones to cheer them on. We're lost in this volleyball. Today was gonna be the day, but we're still here. Volleyball, oh volleyball. I don't believe that anybody feels the way we do. We're lost in this